Our top focus story, it's a shot in the arm for government of India in our diplomatic efforts to bring back Indian businessman Kulbhushan Jadhav, who was abducted from Iran, illegally taken into Pakistan and then sentenced to death. The officer you see on your television screen is Kulbhushan Jadhav, an ex-Indian Navy officer, a businessman in Iran. Now, there's been interim stay granted by the International Court of Justice. The ICJ has put a stay on his execution after India's petition on the 8th of May. India had submitted in the International Court that Pakistan had violated the Vienna Convention and also fundamental rights provided to all individuals. India's External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj tweeted that she had informed Kulbhushan Jadhav's family about the development. Eminent lawyer Harish Salve is presenting India's case at the International Court. Jadhav is a former Indian Navy officer who was in Iran on a business trip when he was abducted and sold to Pakistan's ISI by the Taliban. Pakistan claimed he'd been caught stirring unrest in Balochistan but was unable to provide any proof except a confessional statement. Jadhav was sentenced to death by a military court on the 10th of April.
Obviously, it's a great victory for India. It's a victory for every citizen of India. And I'm glad that the international community has realized that this was not a trial at all. And I mean, the next step should be obviously to ensure that Kulbhushan Jadhav is brought back safe and sound to this country. That should be the first step. And the next step can be to look at similar issues and then raise these. We have other people in Pakistani jails also who are held without trial. So that also we should see. And I guess we must take one step at a time for the human rights review for Government of India. So I have not examined the papers which were moved, but obviously the job has been done very skillfully by Government of India, and full marks to the Government of India and full marks to the Ministry of External Affairs.
Now, so far as the arguments which are likely to be placed before the International Court of Justice, that though Kulbhushan Jadhav is an Indian national, he was all the while denied the consular access, which is a complete breach of the Geneva Convention. Secondly, the Pakistan whole case is depending upon the so-called extracted confession of Mr. Kulbhushan Jadhav, and therefore Mr. Kulbhushan Jadhav has been denied the consular access. So we don't know whether Mr. Kulbhushan Jadhav is really alive or not, whether he's mentally fit or not, and therefore, according to the India, when Mr. Kulbhushan Jadhav was caught in Afghanistan, then thereafter he was kidnapped from Afghanistan to Pakistan, and the army court tried without giving a proper opportunity to defend himself. These all arguments of India has been prima facie being accepted by the International Court of Justice.
जो भारत ने जो दावा बना के रखा था इंटरनेशनल लेवल से वो बहुत ही सराहनीय था, और उसकी वजह से जो पाकिस्तान का असली चेहरा है वो दुनिया के सामने भी आ गया कि कैसे उन्होंने उनके खिलाफ झूठे सबूत पेश किए। जो भारत सरकार ने किया है, भारत की जनता ने इतना जो सपोर्ट किया है जो कुलभूषण जाधव के लिए, वही समझो सब का नतीजा है कि इंटरनेशनल लेवल पे भारत की जो शानदार छवि है कि भाई भारत एक ये सत्य में जयते वाला राष्ट्र है।
All these dots will ultimately converge on to proving the farce of Pakistan and the kind of kangaroo court that they're holding out there. It will come out in the open because all these elements, what you just mentioned, they'll go a long way in supporting our cause. Pakistan cannot behave like this internationally. They can do it to their people over there. They're doing it to the Baluchis. They're butchering them. Now, this is all becoming evident to the whole world, and the world is actually getting more and more enlightened about the kangaroo ways of Pakistan.
Okay.
So definitely it's going to be an issue which will come against Pakistan. And I'm very confident that Kulbhushan will get reprieve. I think it's a very good piece of news, both for the family of Kulbhushan Jadhav and for the whole of India. Even otherwise, within Pakistan, there were other legal channels available. Till the end, the president's pardon was there. In my view, Pakistan gains nothing by taking his life. A live Kulbhushan in their captivity is of higher value for Pakistan for whatever bargaining they want to do with India than a hanged Kulbhushan. So I have no doubt that ultimately, whether it is with the intervention of the international court or with the internal dynamics within Pakistan, Kulbhushan's life will be saved, and we will be very happy for that.
What does this mean for India? What next? Ambassador G. Parthasarathi, India's former High Commissioner to Pakistan, joins me in the studio. Sir, welcome in the studio. Also with me is Raj Chingappa, the Group Editorial Director Publishing of the India Today Group. He broke this big story late last night. Ambassador Rajiv Dogra, former Consul General to Karachi, also joins us on the broadcast. Bishwajit Bhattacharya is former Additional Solicitor General. He'll explain the legal position and the road ahead. But I want to quickly cut across to Hamza Amir, my colleague in Pakistan, who joins us with the latest. Hamza, any reaction from government of Pakistan to this late night development? The International Court of Justice has stayed Pakistan Army's order to execute Kulbhushan Jadhav.
Well, Gaurav, till now there have been no official reactions coming out, but I have had my chats with some legal experts. So I inquired about the decision of this International Court of Justice on Jadhav, and they said that, any decision coming from the ICJ, the military courts do not have, they are not under, they do not come directly under the ICJ or even the civilian court. So that is why they are not actually restricted to do not execute Kulbhushan Jadhav.
Is that really right? Now, is this spiel, or is that actually the case? Because Pakistan has signed the Vienna Convention, Ambassador Parthasarathi. Pakistan has not only signed the Vienna Convention on consular access, it's also signed the additional protocol on the Vienna Convention. So can Pakistan get away by saying that military courts don't come under the jurisdiction of the international court?
Firstly, we'll have to look at this somewhat comprehensively. This is the case we've gone on the basis of the Vienna Convention on consular access and consular relations, because that goes by the principles of natural justice, which means grant of access and so on. So those have been totally violated by Pakistan. As to the argument, which I think is rather stupid and imbecilic, to put it mildly, that their military courts are not subject to the International Court of Justice. It is not their military which signs a covenant with the world and the United Nations on these international issues and the court. It is the government of Pakistan.
Yes.
And they cannot logically claim that the military is not a part of the government of Pakistan. They'll be exposing themselves. That may be the truth, but they'll be exposing themselves more internationally, not tenable. Now, in this particular case, I think the important thing is we've gone on the convention on Vienna Convention on consular access. They are in clear violation. Second, as I said, their stand is untenable. So you cleared the way to move ahead. Okay. One more point on the ground, if I may.
Yes.
They're in serious trouble with Iran.
So I'll come to the issue of Iran in just a moment, but I want to stay on the current issue of India's move to go to the International Court of Justice. And Raj Chingappa, India going to the International Court of Justice, by and large, on any India-Pakistan issue, we'd see Pakistan go to the International Court of Justice. India would defend its case and win it like it did in 1999 when it came to that Pakistan maritime aircraft Atlantic, which we shot down. But India going to the International Court, is this a big signal? We are not scared, and emboldened India willing to go to a third party on the issue of Kulbhushan Jadhav and the Vienna Convention, not on any other issue, sir?
Gaurav, if you look at the options India had on this, after the military court pronounced its verdict, we could have gone to the Pakistan Supreme Court as one option. We could have then appealed to the President of Pakistan, because he does have powers of pardon, and we could have gone to the International Court of Justice. And on the other front, we could have negotiated, on track 2 or whatever it is, to swap prisoners or make sure that the entire issue is diffused. I think this, the Indian government did, and particularly the Ministry of External Affairs, was wisely to go to the International Court of Justice, because firstly, you get a stay. Second, you bring international spotlight on it. Pakistan cannot do anything irrational right now, or seem to be doing anything, with the entire world watching this particular case. So very wisely, India has chosen the option of making it in some senses international by going to the Court of Justice. It gives a pause to the whole affair, because after all, they said that in 60 days he would be executed and we would have to act. I think it's also brought some hope that as this proceeds, they've been clearly in violation of the Vienna Convention.
Yes.
But the merits of the case, of course, will be argued in a different front. We will then have access. We will be able to argue our case properly. And I think, of course, as people have been saying that it looks unlikely that Pakistan would have gone ahead with the execution. We can't take a chance. I mean,
Yes.
we've known them to have irrational behavior. The atmosphere, as you can see, Gaurav, is extremely toxic. We've had the beheading of soldiers. There is no diplomatic movement on this front. Pakistan's Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif is on the back foot after the Panama Papers and the investigation going on. So even politically, it becomes very difficult for us to negotiate with Pakistan on this matter. So I think going to the Court of Justice was the best thing they've done, and they've scored a significant first victory. But let's, this is a provisional stay. We have to go through the motions. We have to see what is, the hearings and what the court would say. But I think it's a very good move.
Okay, so a good move. It's a significant first victory. But this is just one battle won. There is a war ahead that needs to be fought. And Ambassador Dogra, are there any cons? Is there a downside to going to the International Court of Justice? Or it's a good move, well thought out move? It was required.
Well, a couple of points. First, I think compliments are due where they should be given, and Ministry of External Affairs and everyone connected with this case needs to be complimented firstly for keeping it quiet, not shouting from the rooftops that we are going to the International Court of Justice. They let the action speak for itself, and I think that is the course we should follow in future also. Second, ICJ, the International Court of Justice, realized that this is a serious case and this needs immediate action. That is why the application was filed on 8th of May, and the very next day they issued an order staying the execution, or asking Pakistan to stay the execution. But having come to that, I would also add in a word of caution, because there's a hard and tough road ahead, because Pakistan is not an ordinary state. Pakistan is a global villain, and its reaction and its actions are absolutely unpredictable, and they have been. And it is not the first time that Pakistan will be defying international conventions, international protocols, and international agreements that it has signed. It has defied the world opinion and the world protocols all the way through, whether it is nuclear issue or whether being the motherboard of all terror. So to expect rational action from such a state, I think would be asking for too much. So I will say that let us be cautious, let us take one step at a time, and let us wait for the day as it progresses to see how Pakistan reacts.
Mr. Bhattacharya, legally speaking, is Pakistan honor bound, duty bound to listen to the International Court of Justice? Or can Pakistan say, it's a military court, this is a terror issue, we will not listen to the ICJ?
Gaurav, under Article 74, Subclause 4, President Justice Ronnie Abraham has been graciously pleased to issue an interim order in favor of India and against Pakistan based on a strong prima facie case made by the Government of India. So the full marks to Government of India in the very first round. Now ICJ has a tremendous sort of stature and authority. So therefore, when an interim order has been passed by the President of International Court of Justice against Pakistan,
okay,
it will be very, very difficult for Pakistan to ignore and to argue things like in a conflict between domestic law and international law. You see, treaty and conventions,
yes,
if they are not in conflict with your domestic laws,
yes,
basically override.
but
Just as Ambassador Parthasarathy said.
Herein lies the catch. Can Pakistan then take the plea that this international law is in conflict with its domestic law?
No, it is not, because I'm sorry for the interruption.
You know, I want to come back to this point. This is a very good point. I want to come back to this point. In a rare departure, government of India moved the interest of justice. Usually all India-Pakistan issues are bilateral, but on this issue, on the issue of Kulbhushan Jadhav, India moved the International Court of Justice. Will Pakistan listen to the International Court? That's the big question. Will Pakistan listen to the International Court? And Mr. Bhattacharya, can Pakistan turn around and say, it's a military court verdict, it's a terror issue, International Court of Justice has no jurisdiction?
You see, Pakistan is capable of saying anything which defies human rights, which defies Vienna Convention, which defines international human rights. But this particular interim order, which the President of International Court of Justice has passed based on the petition moved by India, it will be very, very difficult for Pakistan to ignore it. Pakistan may raise all sorts of things.
Okay.
But the question for consideration is that if Pakistan is a party to the Vienna Convention,
yes,
and if Pakistan is basically has violated human rights, and the government of India, in order to protect the life of a citizen of India, this will have a cascading, snowballing effect against Pakistan if Pakistan dare defy the International Court of Justice.
Okay. Raj, so far the information India was looking for, what are the charges against him? What was the evidence that was produced against him? All of that information Pakistan was denying. Now, Pakistan will be forced to come out with all that information, or can Pakistan say, our matter, we've executed him or we will execute him, come what may?
You know, Gaurav, if you look at it, the fact is, apart from they denied consular access, Kulbhushan Jadhav's mother actually appealed in a petition requesting for justice. Pakistan has ignored that. We've got no information about that. So we have taken the logical step towards going towards the to appeal to the International Court of Justice, and they have given us an immediate relief on that, a provisional stay. Now hearings are likely to begin as quickly as May 15th, I'm told, my sources say, or could be a little later. But this requires various, you know, the President of the International Court of Justice putting together various other judges from other countries to come and hear it. Then both the countries would address their points of view to the court, and the court could decide. If they decide, Pakistan decides not to, for instance, represent and challenge it on the lack of jurisdiction, I think they would come a cropper, because let's not forget, the Indus Water Treaty, there is a case on that. We do have a dispute resolution. We have both gone to international tribunals on that. Why would this be different? We have argued other cases as well. For them to say, no, this doesn't come under the jurisdiction of the International Court would, as I think Ambassador Parthasarathy pointed out earlier, it is a government-to-government agreement. The military court is just part of that process that is there. And if they do begin to ignore international advice on this, they would begin to lose favor in some senses for whatever they're trying to do over there. International support will wither for them, and India would gain the moral high ground. We still have other options, but I think the big first move has been made, and it's a wise move, it's a good move. But as Ambassador Dogra say, we should move with caution and keep watching what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, what will happen in the next couple of weeks, Ambassador Parthasarathy? India's options. Now, we have Harish Salve defending India's case. The Ministry of External Affairs giving him all support that he requires. Are there pitfalls? Is there something that Pakistan can do that could jeopardize this?
No, I think more importantly, they have given themselves away by saying that their army is not subject to the provisions of the what the ICJ does. Now there is a very important document called the International Convention on the Law of Treaties.
Yes.
Under that, you cannot refuse to fulfill your commitments under an international treaty because of domestic law. In fact, we use that argument when negotiating Tarapur,
Yes.
when the Americans referred to their domestic legislation. So very clearly, on a court of justice represented by eminent lawyers, certainly the International Convention on the Law of Treaties will also figure. So legally they are in a very difficult position. Factually, I think you should bear in mind another thing. They'll have to prove the case that they caught Jadhav inside Pakistani territory. We are claiming that he was arrested, and others have also, the Germans at a certain stage.
The German ambassador,
Yes,
then German ambassador,
said this.
Ambassador
Yes.
said that.
Of course, you and I have a good mutual friend in
Yes.
Ambassador Basit, who talks a lot but knows very little. You would recall that he has also said that they will go by their domestic law. Hopefully, the Chinese, when he goes to China, will educate him with a bit more of international law. So I think in terms legally we are okay. This is a good move, and because as Raj said, the Indus Water Treaties is handled by a separate mechanism, so which we both subscribe to and respect.
Okay.
Now I would like to say one thing: the pressure now has to grow on Pakistan in multidimensionally. Remember one thing, and we should never forget it. Pakistan is the only country which has 3 neighbors with land borders.
Yes.
And is fighting with all 3 on the grounds that it is sponsoring terrorism.
Oh, absolutely.
Iran's army chief has now threatened to attack Pakistan after Pakistani-based guerrilla jihadis killed 8 of their soldiers. At the same time, Afghanistan is doing the same thing, and we are. There has been some talk I heard now about us getting together on a treaty. I don't think Iran will join that sort of an alliance. They have their own role in the Islamic world. But certainly concerted pressure on all 3 borders. And here, if we could get some more evidence about his having been caught inside Iranian territory, or that he was in Iran, and that it's not going to be easy for them to disprove that, then our case is much stronger. I think we should push
evidence will be required for that. I'm coming to you, Mr. Bhattacharya, but Ambassador Dogra, Pakistan does not listen to international community in several instances. So what should India's policy be? One, you're fighting this case legally at the International Court of Justice. Will Pakistan be compelled now? Can Pakistan say, fine, we'll give him consular access, so Vienna Convention has been followed, but they will still try and hang him? Can they do that, or is that not possible?
Well, everything is possible and everything is impossible with Pakistan because it's an impossible state. But having said that, let's come to the facts. And the facts are that there are very few countries today in the world which carry out executions. India, America, China and Pakistan are among those very few countries. But India and America execute people in very rare cases. But China and Pakistan particularly, take delight in executing people. Last year, Pakistan executed about 149 people. This year, just about 2 weeks back, the army chief signed death warrants of another 20 people. Now, all that formality about appeal to Supreme Court of Pakistan and President of Pakistan is just a joke, because when army chief signs an executing warrant, then no one dares oppose him. So the final authority in Pakistan is army chief, who has already signed the death warrant of Jadhav. What happens now after ICJ's intervention? I think even Pakistan would have to pause and think a little, because if it defies ICJ, then the recourse left is to go to Security Council. Now, there have been very rare cases of defiance of ICJ. That is also a fact. And it is also a fact, as Ambassador Parthasarathy also mentioned, that international law or international agreement which a country has signed takes precedence over any domestic law. So Abdul Basit, when he gave that interview, was being foolish and ignorant of the international practices.
Okay.
So in this case, it is the international law and ICJ which will take precedence over any kind of court that Pakistan sets up. But whether Pakistan respects the laws of civility and civilization is another matter. As I've already pointed out, it has defied international opinion and international law in a number of cases, starting with its nuclear program to terror.
Okay, there are some apprehensions, Ambassador Parthasarathy. In fact, I want all your views on this. There are some apprehensions that this could open the way to internationalizing the Kashmir issue, and that is why India chose never to take anything, to the International Court of Justice, because Pakistan could then bring up Kashmir and then rake up all those issues. Is that a genuine fear?
Look, they tried to internationalize during Kargil. It didn't work. On the case of Jammu and Kashmir, most important, there is no treaty or a Chapter 7 resolution in the UN which requires us to be abided by, and for us the Simla agreement is the last word.
Okay.
So we will say that we are going to discuss it with them according to the Simla agreement. Next point, nobody wants to touch this with a barge pole internationally.
Okay.
And even within the Islamic world, the sort of support Pakistan enjoyed is eroding. So in real terms, they can give it a try. They haven't succeeded for the last 40 years.
Yes.
And I can't see them succeeding now.
Okay. Raj, you agree? There is no way Pakistan can succeed even if it tries to internationalize the Kashmir issue. Now we're a much more confident nation, far more confident about where we stand and our situation.
Look, we have gone to the International Court of Justice on a limited point. It is not discussing the entire Kashmir dispute or whatever other issues that we have with us against Pakistan. We have said that they have denied consular access. They are in violation of the Vienna Convention on human rights. What the International Court of Justice will do is to examine those 2 points and then deliver its judgment. So for us to subtly think that Pakistan would, or anyone, or even Pakistan trying to expand the ambit and say, well, this is a problem and now we have to, since India has brought it to the International Court of Justice, we would like to international the entire issue, would look at this moment a little naive for them to try so. Because as Ambassador Parthasarathy said, there have been great efforts in the past for Pakistan to do it, even very, very serious kind of issues, including a war. And the international community hasn't reacted in the way Pakistan would like to do. But I think what it does for us is give us the pause, give both countries the pause. As Ambassador Dogra said, they could act irrationally on various fronts. What would they gain if they did execute Jadhav, summarily, subsequently? And what would, obviously, any such move made by Pakistan will have these calculations that would be there. How would it impact relations? What would be the sort of consequences and retaliation by India on that front? Okay. These are very big, serious issues. And I don't think any country, including Pakistan, can just move ahead and decide that it would do unilateral action without the consequences.
Okay. And Mr. Bhattacharya, the big point is that Pakistan will finally perhaps be compelled to come out with evidence. What is the evidence that they have against Kulbhushan Jadhav apart from one so-called confessional statement, which also is edited in several places?
Absolutely correct. There is zero evidence. Secondly, I would entirely agree with Ambassador Parthasarathy that the Vienna Convention has been signed by Pakistan as a state. It is a settled law internationally that in a so-called conflict between international treaty obligation has to give way to any domestic legislation, and no domestic legislation can override a treaty obligation pertaining to human right. This is a basically human right issue. It is a basically violation of natural justice. So Kashmir issue is completely different. It is outside the purview of any treaty or convention. That is a bilateral issue between India and Pakistan. But this is not a bilateral, this is a human right issue. This is an issue pertaining to specific treaty in the United States, Gaurav. treaty obligations override as a rule all domestic legislation. Substantially same is the jurisprudence in sort of Britain. And in India, there are a lot of Supreme Court judgments also, which very categorically state. In fact, I remember one judgment delivered by Chief Justice Lodha, that treaty obligations, if they are not in conflict with domestic legislation, have to prevail. So therefore, Pakistan is very tightly placed now. I'm glad that this kind of a pressure has been built on Pakistan, and now they will be constrained to fall in line. If they try to defy this International Court of Justice, they will be isolated in the entire world, and India's cause will move up.
So that's
one point I just want to add.
Yes.
To my Pakistani friends, if they are listening.
Yes. Which they are. They follow our show very closely.
If they choose to do this, India has several options which they will regret if we implement it.
Regret for the rest of their lives.
And it will involve some of their citizens.
That's a stern warning that comes. That's a stern warning that comes from India's former High Commissioner to Pakistan. There are several Pakistani citizens that they need to be aware of. Ambassador Dogra, options for Pakistan at this stage. What will Pakistan do? What can Pakistan do, sir?
Well, firstly, having gone this far, I don't think they are going to back down. And knowing the Pakistani character, they will do something which is sudden and takes the world by surprise. So, plus, if Pakistani army backs down at this stage, it will lose face also with the civilian government. That it is not going to accept. So, they are in a catch-22 situation. And they'll find it difficult to sort it out without getting into a major mess. But let me also add to Ambassador Parthasathi's warning to people in the governance in Pakistan, that if they take Kashmir issue once again to the quarters who do not listen to them, meaning the international audience, then they have a lot to worry about, because we have been hesitant for too long. We have been cautious for too long. We should be cautious, but there is also the fact that the partition of India was arbitrary. And there is also the fact that NWFP and frontier areas do not belong to Pakistan. They belong to Afghanistan, which I am going to bring out in my book, which is coming out in the next 2 months, called Durand's Curse. So Pakistan and its leadership should read that book before they take up Kashmir cause once again.
Raj, if you were to, if you were a Pakistani commander, so to say, we are very happy that you are, the editorial director of the India Today magazine and publishing. But what would the Pakistanis do, in your opinion?
No, I would like to put myself in their position. But let's look at the what has happened. I mean, to try and bring the entire Kashmir dispute territorial, I think Pakistan would avoid that. What they could do is, since India has gone on 2 points on this matter, one, of course, is violation of the Vienna Convention for consular access to Kulbhushan Jadhav, and the other is on the human rights question. Now, on the human rights issue, what Pakistan could do is, given the fact that it has constantly harped on human rights violations in Kashmir, try and bring that up to the International Court of Justice and say, look, if you're going to hear about human rights violations within Pakistan, let us also listen to what India has to say, or India has to defend on what is happening in Kashmir. So it is important for India also to start bolstering its arguments on that front. More importantly, I think, while the situation is toxic on other fronts, whether it's on the military front, we have seen what's happened on the border, the fact that the Prime Minister in Pakistan is on the back foot with the Panama case. We do have a meeting coming up next month, possibly between the two Prime Ministers of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting happening possibly in Kazakhstan or in Kazakhstan. And there is an opportunity again for the two countries to try and cool down temperatures and make sure that we have a viable solution to some of the key, the current issues that are there, whether it's terror, whether it is this, to cool down temperatures, because I think it's very important that both countries stay focused on what is there in terms of development, what we need to do internally. And of course, if Pakistan goes beyond any of this, India has demonstrated that it can take tough action, and as Ambassador Parthasarathy say, they better watch out. So I think there is an opportunity in this challenge. Both countries need to work on it and see where it would progress.
Okay. Ambassador Parthasarathy, is it too premature to hope that we will be able to bring Kulbhushan Jadhav back home? Because this is just step one. It's just staying on the execution. Can India hope that he may be brought back?
Look, I'd never regard any cause as hopeless, especially when it concerns one of my countrymen and when I serve abroad or when I was in the army. So let's be real. We're going to stick by Kulbhushan Jadhav come hell or heavy water. But the one more point I would like to make is that, look, this business of human rights of Pakistan taking up, I mean, after all, they have driven out 1 million people from their homes in the Northwest Frontier Province. Balochistan is rearing. As you yourself pointed out, the border on the Durand line is disputable.
Yes.
You should remember there's a very wise saying that people who live in glass houses should not throw stones.
Okay. Mr. Bhattacharya, can India hope, can we hope that International Court of Justice may show the way and Kulbhushan Jadhav may be brought back, or is that, thinking too far ahead?
No. I have every hope for the sake of the country and for the sake of even saving one life. Just see what a path-breaking step Government of India has taken to save one life of one innocent victim who was kidnapped. See, and without any evidence, the person is sentenced to death.
Yes.
And Government of India, no consular access, nothing. So this is one of those rarest of rare cases, if I may say so.
Okay.
Like in the jurisprudence which is propounded in India, where the death sentence is pronounced in rarest of rare cases. So this is one of those rarest of rare cases.
Okay.
If I may say so, verdict should go against Pakistan, and India is being represented by the finest legal brain.
Oh, absolutely.
So I am very, very optimistic.
Okay, on that very positive note, I would like to thank all my friends and guests on the show, Raj Chingappa, Ambassador Rajiv Dogra, Ambassador Parthasarathy, and Mr. Bhattacharya. Many thanks for joining me on that show. Eternally hopeful and praying that Kulbhushan Jadhav may be brought back home safe, alive, and soon. A quick break. We'll be back with India's agenda at 10. Stay with us.